All right, good morning. That's a mess up. Today's date is not the 28th, it's March 3rd, but we started our notes last Friday. Here is our problem for today. After our mess up, when I tried to use your information, which didn't work, excuse me, I'm asking you to make a Venn diagram to show how many 8th grade students play soccer. And here is your table of information. You have the grade that they're in, you have the sport. And again, I want a Venn diagram to show how many 8th grade students play soccer. So as you know, a Venn diagram compares different sets of data. So in this situation, we have two sets of data. We have the grade that we're looking for, and we're looking for a specific sport. So we're looking for 8th graders, and we're looking for a specific sport. In this case, it's going to be soccer. You guys have all the data recorded in your notes? So again, we're looking for 8th graders that play soccer. So the Venn diagram is really going to show us three different situations. It's going to show us 8th graders, it's going to show us soccer players, and it's going to show us 8th graders who play soccer. So based upon your knowledge of Venn diagrams, which I know you have them from language arts previously, we are going to label one side of our Venn 8th graders. We're going to label one side of our Venn diagram soccer players. And in doing so, I would just suggest going through the data one piece of information at a time. So I don't have that information without scrolling, so I'm going to rely on you guys. So let's look at the very first person. And the very first person is, well, actually I do have it. It's in my book here. According to your table there, it's a 6th grader in band. So it's a 6th grader in baseball. I'm sorry. The 6th grader in baseball, does that equate to anything? No. The 6th grader in baseball, so we can put the 6th grader in baseball nowhere. The next piece of information would be a 6th grader in tennis. Can we use that anywhere? The next piece of information is an 8th grader in soccer. Does that work? So here's our options. We have an 8th grader. We have an 8th grader in soccer. It applies to both spots. So where do you suppose we should put the X? In the middle where they overlap. So make sure you don't put them in all three spots, because in the middle is where we have an 8th grader who plays soccer. We have an 8th grader who plays baseball. Can we use that information somewhere? Yes. Just the 8th grader, but not a soccer player, so we don't need to mark that. Next piece of information would be an 8th grader who plays baseball. So again, we have an 8th grader, but no baseball player, but no room for the baseball player on our Venn. A 7th grader who plays soccer.
We just did it. You did it twice.
Did I do it twice? Oh, I'm sorry. So the next piece of information would be a 7th grader who plays soccer. So we have a soccer player, but it wouldn't be in the middle because it's not an 8th grader. It's got to be an 8th grader and a soccer player. Next piece, 8th grader in tennis. Yes, no? Is that right? Yeah. So we have an 8th grader, but tennis isn't up here, so we need to worry about it. A 7th grader who plays soccer. A 7th grader who plays baseball. No information that we need to mark. A 6th grader who plays soccer. And the last one would be an 8th grader who plays soccer, which again would work, correct? So, in total, how many 8th graders do we have in our table? In total, how many 8th graders do we have in our table? Everybody. 4. We have 4 8th graders. 2 of them that are just in 8th grade, 2 of them that are in 8th grade and play soccer. In total, how many soccer players do we have? 5. And in total, how many 8th grade soccer players do we have? 2. So the other way that you would see this information, or you could see this information, is you could see a 2. I'm sorry. You could see a 4, a 2, and a 5. To me, that gets confusing, because there's only 2 X's in the 8th grade section, but how many 8th graders are we talking about? 4. We're talking about 4 8th graders, because you'd still have to include the 8th graders who play soccer. We only have 3 soccer players only, but we also have 2 in the middle that are 8th graders, so we have 5 total soccer players. And in the middle, we only have 2 that are both in 8th grade and play soccer. So you will see a Venn diagram that looks like this. It will just do a 4, give you a 4, a 2, and a 5. We'll have soccer over here. We'll have 8th grade over here. Do we really need to label the middle? Do we need to label this part right here? No, because the middle is going to be an overlap between the other two sets of data, 8th grader and a soccer player. So 4, 2, 5, you can use X's to plot your data, but ultimately you're probably going to see this more. And to me, again, it gets confusing. This 2 goes with this 4. This 2 goes with this 5. So in total, how many kids do we have in this graph right here, you guys? How many kids are we talking about?
9.
Just the X's, right? Just look at the X's. How many kids are we talking about?
7.
7. If you add up a 4, a 2, and a 5, what do you get? 11. So the numbers are not going to be the total number of kids you're dealing with. The numbers are going to be the total number of 8th graders on the left, total number of 8th grade and soccer players in the middle, which overlap, that data overlaps, and on the right, the total number of soccer players, which overlaps with the 8th grade soccer players. So Venn diagrams get confusing if you're not reading them correctly. Since we're here, I just want to review, or have this in your notes, the stem and leaf plots. We have a simple stem and leaf plot with just one stem and one leaf. Super important that you have a key with every stem and leaf plot. Super important that you have a title with every stem and leaf plot. Your stem would be this part right here. I guess I can move that. Your stem would be the part to the left. Your leaves would be to the right. On a double stem and leaf plot or a back-to-back stem and leaf plot, you're comparing two different sets of data. The stem is in the middle. The confusing part, I think, would be the data on the left of the stem. So stem again here. The data on the left of the stem, because you are reading it as I have right here in this location. The middle part would be your first few digits, and then your leaf would be the last digit of every number, but you're reading them in reverse order. So a 1 with a stem of a 10 in the middle is read as a 101. And again, it's important that you include these keys in here so that the person reading your data knows what is being spoken or talked about. Questions on stem and leaf plots, double stem and leaf plots, back-to-back stem and leaf plots, or Venn diagrams? Yes, ma'am.
For the stem and leaf plots, don't they, the numbers have to be in order?
The numbers should be, these numbers to the leaves. The leaves don't have to be in order, but you can place them in order at the end if it's going to help you with your data organization, yeah. So you would redo it. So if I was just collecting data from you randomly from the class, I probably won't be able to put them in order, but you could redo the stem and leaf plot and put them in order, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a different way to write it instead of saying 4, 4, 4, 4, 4 after like the 6 or something? Could you say like 4 to the second?
No,
or something?
because that's 16. And we're not talking about 16, we're talking about the number 64.
Okay.
So you cannot put a power.
You can't like clump them together.
Nope. Because you also want to see how big the leaf is, because remember, we determined that the middle area of the IQ chart is where our class is for the most part. So don't clump them together because it would skew your data, at least the look of your data.
Okay.
Anything else?